On the 26th of June, 2003, barely 72 minutes after the Confederations Cup semifinal match between Cameroon and Colombia, the unthinkable happened. Cameroonian player Marc-Vivien Foé fell to the ground in the middle of the field.
Well, they're not giving them any deep shots down the field. They're tackling very well, and then the run game has been nice.
The paramedics on site tried their best to save him. Unfortunately, they could not resuscitate him. His death left everyone at the stadium and the whole world at large horrified and heartbroken. After the autopsy, medical practitioners confirmed that Foé had a genetic heart disease that led to his tragic passing. The moment of his fall and death on the field remains unforgettable for those who witnessed it. This scene might appear unusual to non-Americans, as players collapsing is uncommon in most sports. However, in American football, such incidents were common. Audiences always saw players fall on the field, not due to illness, but because of the brutality and violence inherent in the game. The history website recorded in the 1904 season that a shocking number of 18 players died from injuries sustained during the game. In addition, 159 players suffered severe injuries, including spinal cord injuries, skull fractures, and rib fractures that endangered their hearts. American football stadiums witnessed bloodbaths and violence. At the time, some newspapers compared the sport to the infamous Roman Colosseum depicted in the movie Gladiator, where slaves faced off against lions and tigers. Charles Eliot, the president of Harvard from 1869 to 1909, was one of the prominent figures that vigorously attacked the game. He said that football is more brutalizing than prize fighting, cockfighting, or bullfighting. You are watching Brand Impact, Untold Stories of Wealth and Business. In preparation for the 1905 season, President Theodore Roosevelt convened coaches and representatives from three of the most prestigious universities, Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. He urged them to reform the game and set an example of fair play for the nation. President Roosevelt was a huge fan of the sport, but was deeply concerned that its excessive violence could decline popularity and cause people to stop playing. In response to the president's appeal, the universities presented a joint statement condemning violence and pledging to prioritize fair play. Despite these efforts, the 1905 season was even more brutal than the previous ones. Sadly, 19 players lost their lives, and 137 others suffered severe injuries. Among the injured players was the son of the American president, who sustained a broken nose. One would think the turnout of this season would mark the end of American football for good. Fortunately, it didn't. Were it not for President Roosevelt's passion for the sport and his proactive measures to reduce its violence, including rule changes aimed at protecting players, American football was on the road to extinction. His interventions helped pave the way for a safer version of the game, ensuring that the game endured and evolved. Thankfully, American football has become less violent in recent years, with fewer deaths and minor injuries. However, the game is still considered dangerous, leaving many Americans who love the sport in a moral dilemma. In February 2018, the writer Joe Drape wrote an article for the New York Times titled, "The American Dilemma: Why Do We Still Watch Football?" In the article, Joe Drape, who was a Catholic, sought advice from a Catholic priest named James Martin about whether it was morally wrong to enjoy watching football, especially the Super Bowl on a Sunday. You would not believe what the priest's response was. Check this out. To his surprise, Father Martin admitted to enjoying the sport, even though he acknowledged its brutality and the harm it inflicts on players. The father confessed to Joe, "I was watching several renditions of Fly, Eagles Fly on YouTube this morning." Still, Martin will meet his 86-year-old mother at his sister's home in New Jersey on Sunday and root for the Philadelphia Eagles to win their first Super Bowl title. This encounter between Joe and Father Martin highlights many people's moral dilemmas regarding American football. I don't think it's a stretch to ask that question, but I'm not sure what the answer is, Martin said. I have watched with interest the progression of medical research. Are we using their bodies for profit? Are we using their bodies for our enjoyment? One significant concern is the condition known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. In 2017, a research paper published in the Journal of the American Medical Association addressed this disorder.
CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
A professor in the Department of Neurology at Boston University, Dr. Anne C. McKee, led this paper, which bore the title Understanding Neurologic Injury and Traumatic Encephalopathy. The study examined the brain tissue of 202 deceased American football players, including 111 who had played in the NFL Super League. The findings of the study were striking. Out of the 202 cases, 177 players, 88%, were diagnosed with CTE. And these numbers are uncommon in medical and research studies. These figures are particularly noteworthy because 99% of the NFL Super League players in the study, which is 110 out of 111 players, had CTE. Unlike what people were expecting, the samples were not randomly selected, but they were based on the requests of the players' families. Nonetheless, these results are significant and reveal a lot. They demonstrate that most individuals participating in this sport are at risk of developing CTE, a condition also observed in boxers and war veterans. This condition can lead to symptoms such as memory loss, mood swings, dementia, and depression, which may lead to suicidal tendencies.
The things we do to one another, okay? Hell, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just tired and confused right now. That's why I say I can't say it the way I want to say it.
Americans have a deep love for American football that surpasses imagination. The NFL stands as the most watched sports league globally, drawing audiences to stadiums and generating annual revenues of up to $10 billion. This revenue rivals the budgets of some countries. The Super Bowl is unique in American culture, akin to Thanksgiving, Independence Day, or Christmas Eve holidays. In fact, the final game of the 2014 season, broadcast live on NBC, drew nearly 114 million viewers, making it one of the most watched live TV events in U.S. history. Yes, it was that mind-blowing. This observation brings us to the question, why is a sport with such high risk so popular and loved in the world's most influential country? We could say that understanding the sport can help us grasp why Americans love it, and comprehending the American psyche helps us to understand their appreciation for sports. By dissecting both the sport and American culture, we can begin to answer this question. Societies produce their own culture, art, and various sports, shaping society in a continuous cycle of influence and development. This helps us to understand the intricate relationship between sports and American society, and can provide insights into why this sport holds such a prominent position. Now, let's go into the details. The game consists of two teams, each with 11 players, facing off against each other. The game's primary objective is to score points by carrying the ball into the opposing team's end zone, or kicking it through their goalposts. Meanwhile, the other team's goal is to prevent this advancement by any means necessary. The team with the most points at the end of the game wins. The game is typically intended to last for an hour, divided into 4 quarters, each lasting 15 minutes. However, in practice, football games often take longer to complete. This extended duration is due to the frequent interruptions caused by physical clashes that prevent the opponent from gaining any yard or inch on the field. For a soccer fan or a basketball enthusiast, American football can be perceived as slow-paced because it frequently halts when players get injured, requiring medical assistance. Americans often describe football as a game with an inch-by-inch progress, as one team slowly advances into the opponent's territory. If you know the game, you'd understand that violence is an integral part of the game. It's essential to recognize that violence plays a crucial role in understanding certain aspects of American culture, and you can observe it in American cinema, including cowboy films and Marvel movies featuring characters like Iron Man and the Hulk destroying buildings. Conflicts, including bloody wars with Native Americans, mark American history. Americans have a fascination with violence. Some argue that this fascination is one of the reasons behind their attachment to sports like American football. However, other explanations must also be considered. such as the concept of American exceptionalism. This term describes the constant belief of Americans that they are unique, living in a new society in a new world. Americans love everything different from the rest of the world. They have American sports, food, lifestyle, and culture. Many Americans may not pay as much attention to the world outside of their country. To them, America is the world, and what happens within their borders is exceptional. It's normal for them to embrace American football while seeing soccer, often referred to as football elsewhere, as something completely foreign and unusual. The American Football League has a season usually lasting 17 weeks, whereas the English Football League spans 38 weeks. All the excitement and commotion for just 17 weeks seems perfectly reasonable to Americans. The NFL is a fast-paced, thrilling, and highly competitive league. Unlike regular football, where teams like Real Madrid and Manchester United often dominate, the NFL's structure differs. From 1966 to 2020, only 20 teams have won the Super Bowl, and the team with the most titles has won just 6 championships. This league contrasts regular football, where a team like Real Madrid has clinched 14 Champions League titles. The competition in the NFL is marked by its unpredictability, which adds excitement even when the games themselves may seem less entertaining. It's important to note that the NFL is closely tied to significant businesses, and frequent game stoppages create advertising opportunities, generating substantial revenue. Moreover, Americans have a unique connection to the NFL. As Father Martin mentioned earlier, special rituals surround the league, making it a family event where people come together to watch games, enjoy barbecues, and engage in various activities. Here's another reason that explains their affinity for this sport. This one seems like the most important. While skills like running with the ball and throwing it while on the move play a role, the primary emphasis in this sport is on effort and determination. In American football, persistence becomes crucial, even if your natural abilities and skills are limited. The sport definitely requires skills and strength, but not the specialized and hereditary strength found in sports like basketball. Through training, one can develop the necessary strength needed. It often appears as a sport accessible to ordinary individuals, offering them a chance to strive for glory. This game is one for the average Joe, an individual with a simple mentality who lacks many natural talents, but makes up for it with effort and determination. Many Americans hold this self-image, and watching the movie Forrest Gump is a good example of this concept. It tells the story of a man with limited mental abilities who excels remarkably in various fields, including football and table tennis, and even saves an entire battalion during the Vietnam War. This model is the same as the average Joe, which is more encouraged in American education than the concept of a genius born with exceptional abilities. Let's paint a picture, shall we? In football, for instance, you may witness a player catching the ball and attempting to break through a wall of opposing players, even when the odds are against them. To non-Americans, these attempts might seem frivolous. Why would someone take such risks just to gain a few yards for their team? They do it through sheer determination, endurance, and a willingness to go to great lengths, even putting their lives on the line. As the famous speech delivered by actor Al Pacino in the film Any Given Sunday, written by Oliver Stone, declares, "Inch by inch."
Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished.
This phrase represents the American perspective on football and life, where one sees life itself as a contact sport where you fight inch by inch to get what you want. A group of formidable men is striving to gain new territory, much like the pioneering adventurers who first settled in America. These explorers started their journey from the East Coast along the Atlantic Ocean. Although it took decades, they finally reached the farthest point in California, marking the American border, which stretched from the Atlantic to the Pacific coast. American football embodies the spirit of war and battles for strength, distinctiveness, and the country as a whole. It is considered a masculine sport, as President Roosevelt once mentioned. His directive aimed to curb violence in the game without weakening its essence. Roosevelt used the term emasculation and expressed his belief in the value of violent sports as a demonstration of masculinity, He had little sympathy for those injured in the game as long as the injuries weren't fatal. While he advocated for reducing the dangers in the sport, he was adamant that it should maintain its rough, masculine character and not become more like women's sports. We all know that if an alien visited the Earth, it would only come to America because America is the world. At some point, the alien would find an unusual ball called a football, which is not spherical and is played with the hands. The final game, the Super Bowl, would leave the alien even more puzzled. This strange visitor might attempt to send a report to its galaxy, but the confusion would overwhelm it, leading to tears in the locker room. Eventually, Al Pacino would come to the rescue, advising that one should live life inch by inch. To truly understand this world, one must see it as a new land to explore meticulously. Even if you're different from the rest of the world, with limited abilities and not the most remarkable intelligence, persistence and struggle can carve a place for you in this world. We hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click on the notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a lit video. Be sure to watch our previous episodes. We always welcome your criticisms and appreciate your thoughts about us. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.